Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us here today at Upstream. We are pre-recording this, but we are very fortunate today to get to spend some time with Aisha Gautreau, who serves as a lead in the open source program office of a large Canadian telecommunications organization. Like many companies out there, this organization is in the process of a digital transformation. Got a lot of expertise, deep history in telecom, and is in the process of moving into being more and more of a tech company. Aisha is right at the forefront of this change, and there are a lot of lessons that are being applied now and being learned as folks look ahead into how can open source be used as a strategic differentiator within the company and outside in the market. So Aisha, I'm so happy to be able to chat with you here today. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Lauren.
Yeah. So to get us started, maybe you could just walk us through, the audience through, how did your organization decide to build an open source program office?
Sure. There wasn't actually really any kind of main event that really triggered our decision to open an OSPO. And in fact, we were quite lucky when we started the OSPO. The Log4j situation happened a few months later. So it kind of maybe helped us to substantiate why we needed that OSPO. But when we get down to it, we kind of started it for a few reasons. There's obviously recognition in what we were seeing, across the industry, software supply chains, regulations coming from the White House, and obviously here in Canada as well when it comes to SBOMs. And then with internal directives as well that we had in the organization. It didn't make sense for project teams to kind of be navigating everything that they had to do on their own and within silos. So centralizing it all, putting on the bulk of the work on our heads, kind of put that process and tools together, made sense and was easier all around for everyone in the organization. And then it allows our developers and really project teams to focus on what they need to do to deliver and let us worry about all the other things.
That's great. So sounds like a really good sort of interstitial layer between, maybe folks that are in leadership thinking about the changing regulations and landscape around software
Right.
supply chain security, and then that developer experience of,
Right. Exactly.
I'm just trying to get my work done.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. So it's really great that this was identified as a gap, right, for the company.
Mhm.
What would you say, is there anything else you would say about different problems the company was trying to solve, or even, sort of key success indicators along the way?
Um, solving the problem, we didn't know that there was a problem yet to kind of solve. And that kind of came along as we stood up the OSPO, how to kind of find out what we had, and starting off with that inventory piece of saying, what's in our organization? What do we have already? What do we need to look at and understand? So I think that was kind of our main push of what we were initially trying to solve is just kind of get that understanding at the beginning. We're a young OSPO. We're about 2.5 years in now. So we're still relatively new at things and trying to, move that along. But that's what I would say kind of was maybe our main sort of thing, that the problem we were trying to solve is just understand what we had.
Yeah, that can be a massive undertaking, especially,
Hmm.
when you built so much software, within the company
Yeah.
already. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a note here about an SSDLC team at your
Hmm.
organization. What can you tell
Yes.
us about that team and how the OSPO fits in with that?
Sure. So SSDLC, or some people know it as SDLC, but we put the extra S in there, and that stands for security for us. And I think, as most people know, with SSDLC being the whole shift left mentality, curation around open source, and just putting that methodology in is a natural fit into SSDLC. And helps follow the security by design principles. So for us, positioning an OSPO into SSDLC kind of puts us in the position to allow teams to think and be aware of the open source, or inner source for that matter, that they're trying to use right from the start. it makes the life of the developer easier. Kind of going back to that thought process we had earlier, to not have to go back later, swap out open source libraries if there's vulnerabilities, especially if it's a transitive vulnerability. It allows the OSPO to kind of have rounded input into its structure. Being within SSDLC, we have DevSecOps, DevX, tooling, et cetera. It's all kind of centralized and it allows us to support the teams a lot better. So for us, that's how it kind of fit into, our broader transformation and, putting it in the SSDLC and why we made that decision. Just follows that, do it first and don't worry about it later.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the what you mentioned about, giving the developers what they need to make decisions. There's an empowerment thread running through that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything you would say so far? I mean, again, I know you mentioned this is a newer initiative. It's still in its infancy. It's growing, and all that. Is there anything you would say about that developer experience so far? Are you seeing what feels like more developer empowerment?
Yeah, definitely as part of our bigger, DevX program, within the organization and what we're trying to do there and empower them more, but especially when it comes to our inner source as well. So, like we said, only 2.5 years in, but, we're working towards inner source as well. We stood that up about a year ago in the organization to allow and kind of empower everyone to work together internally. That helps them kind of, get to know each other, get to know each other's code, kind of get that collaborative piece going on together. So that's kind of the shift that we've seen a little bit more. I think, I would say maybe about a year or so ago, the organization, we had a lot of silos, different teams doing the same thing, but not knowing they were doing the same thing. So the OSPO's kind of brought that to light a little bit. And obviously with the DevX program helping that much more, it's shown, how we can kind of work together as a bigger community.
I love that. It's so fun when you begin to apply things as sort of open source culture and bring
Mhm.
that, within the walls of the building and see those kinds of
Yeah.
things happen. It's magic.
Yeah. Thanks.
Let's see. So, how does your organization think about open source strategically as you look ahead? Have
Mhm.
you noticed any differences between when the OSPO was first started and today?
Hmm. Yeah, I think definitely the awareness piece. So just thinking how open source is really key to the organization. And I think one thing that we really found, when we started down this journey was developers themselves know, about the open source. They know what open source is. They know that they're using it in their applications, but the entire project team that they were working with maybe didn't have line of sight to it. So really opening up the knowledge of what open source is across the many different levels in the organization helps also support the developers in that way as well. The more people who are aware of it, the more people who can support the use of it and know its value and help securely manage it as well. Basically to expose everyone on a project team to us was a big key thing that's changed since the OSPO has been in place. It's that, just overall awareness of, oh, wow, that's a thing. That's great. And if we use it the right way, we can develop faster, we can develop better. That kind of stuff in the organization has kind of really been an eye opener for many project teams outside the developers themselves.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was a
Mm-hmm.
part of I was in the audience of another talk I heard recently from some OSPOs talking about this
Mm-hmm.
very thing, and they were talking about really partnering even with like product owners and product managers in bringing this idea of, to your point, how open source can accelerate development and what are the different trade-offs you need to think about for that. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that really I'm hearing a lot of what you're saying is resonating in that same way.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your day to day? What are some of your primary responsibilities right now?
Oh boy. Okay. So day to day is really just a lot of communication. So, like I said, raising that awareness, getting the collaborative going, um, looking at how we can kind of move forward. So, we've got three pillars, if you will, within our OSPO, and they're all start with a C. It made it easy for everyone to remember. So, it's what we consume, what have we consumed, and how we can continue to consume carefully. how we can create, and then how we can contribute. So it's one of our transformation pieces that we're looking at as well, is how we can give back, to the community, whether that's contributing to other projects or whether that's, creating our own projects and putting them in the wild. But how do we do that as an organization and move forward? So our day to day is kind of that. It's focused on, getting the input for that, pushing that out, having the conversations that need to be had. So that's kind of what we're doing every day.
Yeah, I wonder, do you ever interact with your legal team there in any ways? I was just thinking about the contribution and communication.
Oh, yes, all the time. So that's the one thing that is great about, the OSPO and having it centralized, is not having to have every single team go to the lawyers and have those conversations. We have to do it for them. But it's great because it's been a good learning experience for us as well to say, okay, how can we, kind of establish a central kind of set of rules, if you will, and I'll use rules loosely with some air quotes here, but just kind of that standard baseline, that the rest of the teams can kind of follow and say, okay, if I follow X, Y, and Z, then I'm approved to do this, or I'm not approved to do that, and make it very clear and easy for them to decipher. Bringing it back to that thing I said at the beginning, empower the developer, right? Give them the things, we have the hard work, let them do what they need to do and just deliver, and follow an easy set and they'll get there. And that's part of SSDLC as well. It's kind
That's
of a nice
great.
little bow.
Let's see. Is there anything interesting that you're aware of that your organization has built with open source, or something in particular that has been pushed out as inner source since the OSPO started?
Yes, we haven't published any, open source publicly yet, since the OSPO has been in place. That will hopefully come soon. But from an internal perspective, one of the things that we kept seeing a lot of developers have to do is follow the brand of the organization. So whether it's, certain sets of colors or certain sets of buttons and different functionality that those buttons have, developer teams were having to recreate the wheel every time, multiple places. And so one of the big pushes on InnerSource was get a centralized spot that all of that lives, that's already been approved by brand, approved by other teams, put it there and everyone just leverage it. And so that's been a big win, I think, for a lot of teams, is to, take a look at that part and use that over and over. The reusable code, that's the important part.
Yeah, I have to
Mhm.
imagine that's been a really powerful message to take to leadership, to show that
Yeah.
time and cost and energy savings.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It is a little, we have, struggled a little bit with some of our metrics and stuff like that, when it's come to inner source, to, because it is a baseline, right? We're just starting
Mhm,
off,
mhm.
but, we'll get there, we've seen the projects grow from, over a year ago. I think we started off with 8 the day we launched, 8 ideas, and I think we've grown about 200% since then. So, it's a good effort for, just trying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
think that's great. I think that advice, or your experience about a baseline and the promise of the progress y'all have seen is going to be, I hope, very inspirational to our upstream attendees.
Mhm.
Um, so what are the benefits, sort of piggybacking off of that efficiency
Mhm.
question, what are some of the other benefits that your company is hoping to see as a result of investing in having this OSPO office?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few things, of having an OSPO. So the centralized point of contact. It also means centralized funding as well, right? So we can look at, participating in memberships, things like that, in different organizations through the OSPO, that other teams can just benefit from and don't have to follow. The partnerships with DevX is a big benefit. So it's really that empowerment, making sure things are secure, the overall structure and governance around everything, high compliance gains. But I think the biggest benefit really is the awareness piece, at all project levels. So if, a developer, for example, is aware that, oh, I'm using this particular package and, there's might be a vulnerability in it now and I need to fix it, et cetera. As long as everyone on the project team is aware that, something needs to change, then you're going to get that support, right? If people aren't aware that there's something in open source that it could be vulnerable or anything else, they're going to go, what? You need to do what? Sorry, I can't support that. I need to fund you on this other new feature instead. Build this instead. Don't fix this. But the awareness piece, to me, that's the biggest benefit. The more people who know, then they see the benefit of open source. And I think that's the big key in an organization, is that people shouldn't be afraid of open source, right? Most applications, 90%, 80% of applications are built with it. You just got to know it's there, and the benefit of it, and how to, properly manage it. I think that's the big key and the benefit.
Yeah, I love that about, an OSPO in an organization is, once you start to increase that visibility and awareness, there can be a reflexive reaction of fear, right? And oh my gosh, and have even heard people say before, oh, well, maybe we should just use less of this. And, there can certainly be options to use less of it, but as you say, like it would be completely impossible, right, to work and make progress at a reasonable pace of business without open source. And so I love that voice of the OSPO to really, again, sort of be that layer between what's empowering that developer velocity and then, sort of reassurances around the risks that, it's kind of the first thing that shows up when you start really doing that inventory. So are there other lessons or just key lessons that you feel like you've learned, or recommendations that you might have for a company who's considering building an OSPO, or somebody who's considering joining a nascent OSPO to take on the kind of role that you've taken on?
Yeah. I would say it's, start slow and throttle. And what I mean by that is, don't just automatically jump in and expect you're going to have a perfectly up and running OSPO, within your first few months of starting one. It is a slow process, because you are generating those awareness. You got to understand what you have in place before you can put some structure around it. There's all of that. So it's really throttle that. Take your time, understand, and implement, and partner with everybody. You can't do it alone in the organization. It is not a one-person show. Get people to join you. Have a bigger group. Have a council if you want. Partnering with the DevX. Have a DevX member on the council. Have leadership support. And talking to the leadership so that they understand and buy into the concept of the OSPO. That's big. But yeah, communicate. That's, kind of the big lesson. Tell everybody. Share with everybody. And just celebrate it. That's a big thing. Celebrate the wins, even if they're small, and share, and once you have that, kind of going internally, then it'll keep going out, externally as well.
I love that. Okay. So start slow and measured.
Yep.
Build up those partnerships, bring everybody to the table in various ways, and then communicate. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, just thank you so much for your time here today. I love a fireside chat, and this was delightful. So I wish you best of luck and what's next for the team. And I'm excited to watch your journey.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, and hope to work with you guys again.